There's a divide here in terms of the perceived value of that position relative to what GMs around the league, particularly those that rely upon analytics and a certain way of looking at the position, believe that it is simply replaceable. Now, Saquon Barkley is a rare athletic talent. He was healthy last year, came back, had a productive season. But are you willing to do the type of contract that would be an outlier to a large degree when you've got the player this year on a franchise tag that's about $10 million? For some positions, the franchise tag is a weapon for the players, where if you get tagged, it's actually a good thing because of how it drives the market. But the franchise tag is dictated by what other players at your position are making. Think of it this way, and I was thinking about this morning. I pulled up some salary sheets and went through it. If we say the cutoff's $13 million or more, okay, which has kind of been a number that's been talked about with Saquon, maybe 13, maybe that's the magical number. There are 20 wide receivers in the NFL making at least $13 million.
Ooh.
There are 14 defensive tackles in the NFL making at least $13 million per year. And we've seen monster contracts at that position over the past 12 months or so. 13 corners making $13 million. There are 7 tight ends making at least $13 million in terms of APY on their contracts. How many running backs, Brockman, making $13 million or more?
3.
TJ?
6.
Del Tufo.
1.
The answer is 2. Splitting the difference. We'll give it to Del Tufo on Prices Right. Christian McCaffrey makes $16 a year, which you can argue just because of the versatility that he has within that offense.
Worth it.
He counts as, Le'Veon Bell would like this logic, he would count as a player who kind of is a receiver / running back, so you're paying him to do multiple things. The other one's Alvin Kamara at $15 a year.
Unbelievable.
Dalvin Cook just got released. You got Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon. They're all in the $12 million per year range. Right. But in terms of that upper echelon, Aaron Jones just took a pay cut. Dalvin Cook got released. Tony Pollard, who's the only of the 3 franchise-tagged running backs to sign his tender so far, is currently the 7th or 8th, depending how you look at it, highest-paid running back in the NFL at a $10 million tender, which is what Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs would be looking at as well. Which brings us to something that Barkley said beyond those comments, which was he did not rule out, didn't say he would do this, but did not rule out the possibility, come July 17th, if there's no long-term deal, holding out and not playing and potentially sitting out the season. It's hard to imagine that 5 years after Le'Veon Bell held out for an entire season in 2018, that another running back is going to look at that situation. Even though Le'Veon did get paid on the back end of that, it's hard to imagine another running back is looking at what happened to Le'Veon Bell's career after that. I think he played for 4 teams over 3 years, and his career was over. Now he's a boxer. And say this is going to be not taking the money now, putting my career on hold is actually going to be worth it. Especially because the Giants could well do what the Steelers had the option to do, which was tag him the second time, and they did. You can tag the guy a second time even if he doesn't show up the first time. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll say this. Josh Jacobs, there's really been nothing going on. I said Saquon Barkley, there's at least been negotiations. As far as I'm aware, from my understanding, there's really nothing happening with Josh Jacobs. It's hard to imagine right now seeing Josh Jacobs, who's a man of principle, the reigning NFL rushing leader, showing up July 25th or whenever the Raiders report without a long-term deal. Does he show up by week 1? I'm not 100% certain that he does. Saquon, just because, again, they're at least trading offers, you'd think they have a chance. Tony Pollard, there's been at least some discussion. Pollard's probably the simplest one of these deals to get done because his extension's probably in the neighborhood of what the franchise tag is. But at some point, and I know that Josh Jacobs kind of alluded to this in a tweet the other day, saying something along the lines of sometimes not doing it for us, we're doing it for the ones that come after us. For whatever you want to read into that, if you take it as being about a part of the contract negotiations, at some point somebody has to change the structure and the scope of where a positional value goes. At the linebacker position, it was C.J. Mosley. Inside linebackers, off-the-ball linebackers were not getting paid. Then the Jets got in a bidding war with, I believe it was the Ravens, which was Mosley's old team, and gave him $17 million a year, which was like $4 million beyond any other linebacker in the league. Mike McCagnon, coincidentally or not, was fired about 2 months later, and Joe Douglas took over. But look what happened after that. You had Roquan Smith top that deal. Shaq Leonard topped it. Bobby Wagner on his Seattle deal He got beyond what Mosley got. Fred Warner, Tremaine Edmonds just this past offseason got $18 million a year from the Bears. So it is possible to reset the market. But to do that, you got to be willing to go to the wall on this. And that wall exists at July 17th. Does anybody push past this? Because you also have to know your downside. If you haven't signed the tender, it can be pulled back at any point. Potentially one of those teams could decide to look into trade options. They could simply pull the tender altogether, sign somebody else who's sitting out on the street. There's a lot that goes into this. Saquon's absolutely right in terms of just the running back position and how it's being treated. But on the flip side of that, there's only so much you can do. You have to push for the best deal possible and then make a decision on that final day. Do you take what's out there now, or do you go into the unknown? Because the unknown can be a scary place, particularly when you play a position that so many people within the league view as replaceable.
Yeah, the unknown has. When was the last time the unknown has worked out for a running back?
That's the issue. Is, if you go back through the history of running back franchise tags, there have been some in recent years, but again, the tag number has been so low that it largely works against guys.
I guess Zeke got paid, but now he's without a team.
Well, Zeke got paid. The Cowboys do front-loaded deals, and so then you get into the later years of the deal, and you've already made your money. So for Zeke, it made a lot of sense. Zeke was a strong deal that he got. He just got cut when he got into the non-guaranteed years of it. It's how NFL contracts are structured.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.